See, I think that all the contestants actually made a really nice job of the entries, and I congratulate them all on working so hard.
All right, there's the lateral view, the right side of the horse standing.
It's the left side. Yeah, now looking at this is pre-shoeing, and it's fairly obvious whoever had shod this horse previously had done a real nice job, because coming up to a shoeing period, the feet are still in pretty good balance despite being at the end of their shoeing period.
One thing that Jay did do, which would be pretty clever if you're entering a contest, is if it is to be judged on how good the foot looks when you're done. If you start with a good-looking foot to start with, that's that's not a bad idea. And I think our third place finisher, he started with some really tough feet, which made the finished product obviously just a little bit tougher to look at. So,
looking at the initial solar surface of this, a thing that I like about this is that he has some half rounds on there, so you've got a 360-degree sort of collateral ligament ease right the way around the shoe, not just at the toe. And even though it's at the end of the shoeing period, you can see where breakover is occurring quite close to the tip of the pedal bone, despite being the end of the shoeing period. It's a huge advantage to the horse.
We also, you can see at the end of the shoeing period, there's only 4 dales. The shoe is not shifted, and the quarter clips have been a big help for that. So, this guy has put good shoes on, lasted a good long time with as little invasion as possible.
For me, this shoe would be a little bit asymmetric. Although it's on there tight, it obviously fits the foot, but it would make me suspicious that probably because it lacks a little symmetry, that maybe the foot is asymmetric, and that maybe a little more attention to the trimming. Also, looking at one of the heels I set off the heel a little bit. Now I know towards the end of the shoeing period the feet are going to grow, but I get the feeling that it maybe wasn't set on the heel just to start with.
For those of you that are thinking about getting in this challenge, I tell you what, it's kind of like the Calgary Mail-In. Here's another way you can enter a contest, show your work, and participate and build your skills. This has been a fantastic thing. All right, so here on our off front, one thing that I noticed that the shape of the shoe was not necessarily the shape of the shoe that I would use. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just a little different than I would use. The widest part of that foot comes way back, and we had more than enough hoof wall to improve that shape in my mind. However, he did do a very nice, good, clean work. All his cuts are clean and smooth. He found a good spot to stop trimming, and I was pretty happy with that overall.
Yeah, I too think I have to compliment him on the fact that he's actually trimmed the foot flat. It's a very difficult thing to do, to trim quite as flat as that. My concern a little bit is that if you look either side of the toe, that there's a little flare there, and that may be causing some of the issue at the toe. You have an old abscess track or some sort of defect there, and it's a common thing to find that if the toe quarters get moving outwards and they start to flare, that it will cause toe cracks. So it's something to be careful of. And I think if you could straighten the bars up just a small amount, then I think that would have been a perfect job actually.
All right, now when you look at the dorsal wall, very nice and straight. I would have loved to have seen him just touch the area behind the quarter. You can see the dressing stops, an 1.5 inches shy of the heel, and so the only one that actually did finish his foot all the way through the heel was our second place finisher. But this here would have been, if he'd have just touched that for me, even with a sand block, I'd been very happy.
Yes, I also like the 3-to-1 ratio of toe to heel. It's a textbook looking foot, and you don't see that very often. I think it's nice that he's managed to achieve that just from good horseshoeing. This foot's a much better foot for me, and still there's just unequal thickness of hoof wall right the way around the whole foot. And I know that the hoof wall of the toe sometimes is a little thicker than it is at the heel, but here we have good thickness of the hoof wall at the heels, and it gets a little narrower through the widest part of the foot and then flares back out again. So maybe just a very small attention to detail on dressing the front wall back slightly, particularly on the toe pillars, would be a thing I would like more.
For me, there is way more than enough foot here to have had a more symmetrical job. That being said, this is our winner, so it's a very sweet job. You can see the cut through the frog was not overdone. Excess was removed and no more, which I think that was a classic way to do it. I just wish he had found a more symmetrical foot for me.
Looking at the shoe before it's on the foot, it's a little asymmetric for me. I know that horseshoes, when they're manufactured, can be asymmetric. They're not necessarily all perfect. But if they had a little more symmetry, as both Chris and I were speaking about in the foot, then maybe the shoe would have been altered so it would have been more symmetric.
All right, now here, if you look at these clinches, this is really, really well done. Not only are the clinches nice and square, there's not a great pull down above them, and the foot is dead flat on the shoe. I like the position of the shoe. This was just a very classic, good-looking work.
Well, I have to agree with that, Chris. It's nice. I think any horse that was wearing this would be comfortable, and it's what I would call a safe, good quality shoeing job. Has provision in the heels there for a little bit of foot growth, because when you have side clips on there, it's actually going to drag the shoe forward as the foot grows more than it would do if it didn't have clips on. So the guys obviously thought this through, made a nice shoeing job. He has an early break over at the toe. It's a really nice finish, strong, well-made clips, good clenches, a perfect classical job. And you have to compliment somebody who's done this much work. And obviously, looking at this, he does this on a daily basis. So I reckon if you were following behind this man, you'd have your work cut out to keep up, actually. I'd like to comment on this. Looking at the heels of the shoe, they've been finished nicely, they've been ground up. Okay, and you could rasp them up in a vise, but the guy's obviously taken a lot of pride in his work, and he's given an allowance for the horse's foot to grow through a shoeing period, and that's probably why it looks so good at the end of it.
If you look at our heel coverage and compare them carefully, that was a bit of a problem for me. Couldn't tell whether on that left side, which I think is the medial heel there. Would that be right? Yeah. If there's a little bit of buttress showing there in an exam or something, that would be a disqualification. But I could not see it clearly enough to make that call whenever I was looking at it on my computer. So I feel that shoe is just slightly shifted, but without looking at the heels, I like the balance around the frog. I like the way the sole looks, and I like all that. It's just that medial heel gave me a little concern.
It's an easy thing to do, and sometimes you fit the shoe up, it looks great. By the time that you've gone there, cooled the shoe back out again if you've been hot fitting it, then things can distort, and when you go back to nailing it on, sometimes we get in such a hurry to get the whole job finished and done that you just miss minor small details.
One more thing to say about this, we are looking at a still photograph that we can study for hours if we wanted to, and we can pick apart, and we can look at it in a little bit different perspective. So whenever you take a picture of your work, just know that everybody's going to look at that with a lot more intensity, and you may not even notice that until you look at the photograph yourself. So, it's just part of the game.
One thing about having a nice finish on the shoe is that clients will always see that part of it. And I know people that may not be fantastic horseshoers, but they produce a high finish and are absolutely overwhelmingly loved by their clients because the job looks nice. Yep. So sometimes, it can hide some of our faults, maybe.
If you just look at this horse, you can see he's comfortable. You can see his feet are under the bony column. He does have a little bit of offset knee, especially that near front. You got that cannon bone to the lateral side of the carpus there. But everything comes down under that bony column very nicely. The platform under the horse is, I really liked the horse's stance whenever I was looking at the pictures.
I'd go with that, actually, that if the horse's limbs are vertical when you finish shoeing them, usually the horses are, if they're comfortable, they're going to be more relaxed. They'll stand better. If they become quieter. Certainly, if you're doing a job where they're comfortable, they're not so likely to pull you around either. It seems to me an indicator sometimes when I see these horses where they're trying to get their hind legs underneath them, that they're maybe sore from what you've done in front. And this horse looks as comfortable as he could possibly be, actually. Looking at the left side of this, you can see how vertical the limbs are. It means that the whole weight distribution will be taken through the limbs in a correct manner, and the chances are this horse will stay sound. If it's shod this way every time, that it will do a great job for the owner and stay sound for a long time.
Hey, thank you guys very much for getting involved.